Here's an interesting one. Guilt. We've all felt guilty at some point for our inability to do things, our inability to live up to expectations, our inability to join in with society, with friends, with family. And we shouldn't feel this guilt. It's not fair on us to feel something bad due to something we didn't cause. None of us asked for this illness. None of us inflicted it on ourselves. I've never met anyone with this condition who wasn't a driven person, someone who was motivated and trying to succeed at life. The fact that it seems to strike people like us who are trying our best to succeed is one of the cruel ironies of this illness. And the guilt starts out early on, I find, with little things like, friends wanting us to meet them and us not being able to because we just don't feel well enough. And even if they understand and are nice about it, we can still feel a little bit guilty. Oftentimes they don't understand and they can be a bit mean about it. That's difficult to deal with. Trying to explain to people that, look, it's not our fault, please don't make me feel bad about this. So yeah, people can try and make me feel guilty for not contributing to society, despite the things that I may have done in the past, despite the things that you may have done in the past. It's not your fault. You didn't ask for this illness. You didn't ask to have your life completely decimated by this condition. You didn't ask to have your social life taken from you, your friends and relationships all taken from you by this illness. You didn't ask for any of that. You didn't ask for your career to be taken from you, which you may have worked really hard to get where you were. I know I did. I worked so hard to get a position at Abbey Road Recording Studios. It was my dream job. I worked incredibly hard and I got given that position. And I got ill, all taken away from me, my dream career. And yet still, people try to make out that somehow I want to live in my mum's house without being an audio engineer, working on the albums of bands that I love. That's crazy. Absolutely crazy to even think that's a possibility, but that is what society and people try to do to us. That really, really is extremely difficult to take and extremely difficult to live with. They try to make us feel guilty for not contributing, for not being productive members of society, and it's just not fair. It's wrong. In fact, most people who are that judgmental and treat us in that kind of way, they're not very productive, useful members of society themselves. So yeah, people try to make us feel guilty for not doing what we simply can't do. But you have to learn to refuse to accept that guilt because it's not ours. We didn't cause this illness. It's not something you can inflict on yourself. We shouldn't feel guilty about the consequences of this condition. In fact, most of us try to do more than we should with this condition, despite it, because before we were ill, we were driven people, and we don't like our lives being wasted on managing our symptoms. And that is very, very difficult to accept and deal with sometimes, a lot of the time. So yeah, what it comes down to is that with an illness like this, people will try to make you feel guilty for various things. Not being able to join in with family functions, not feeling up to sitting down at the table with everyone else for a meal, not being able to attend a gathering, a social event. And if people do try to make you feel guilty for this, try to explain to them that they shouldn't, because it's not fair, and you didn't ask for this, and you'd love to be able to join in and contribute, but you just can't. And if they don't accept that, you just have to refuse to accept the guilt, because you don't deserve it. It's not legitimate guilt, and you shouldn't feel it. Same with society and in general. It doesn't matter what they think. They don't have to live with what we have to live with. They haven't had their careers taken from them like we have. They haven't had their lives destroyed the way ours have been. So they don't matter, their opinions don't matter. And it's up to us to refuse to accept the guilt. Some people may try to play the guilt card as in, oh, you could have it much worse. As it is, what I have experienced before I got ill was legs that worked pretty damn well, and I would love to have that back, legs that worked well and no pain. that was my experience, and that's what I wish I could go back to, but that's not my reality. My reality now is what I have to live with. Other people may have it worse, and that's terrible for them, and I feel bad for them, but that shouldn't make me feel guilty about feeling bad for myself and feeling bad about what I have to go through and what I've lost. The same for healthy people who are a little bit ill. Just because we have it worse doesn't make that, what they're experiencing, any easier for them. If someone's got the flu, they feel, horrible, they feel hideous, like we know very, very well, because we feel internally like that almost the whole time. They feel it for just a few days. For them, it's unbelievably brutal. But that doesn't make it any easier for them to know that we go through it all the time. Just as it doesn't make it any easier for us to know that other people are suffering worse than we are, with conditions that are worse than ours. Yes, many people have conditions that are much worse than ours, that are much more difficult to live with, that are much more debilitating. But don't let yourself feel guilty about feeling bad for what you've lost. What we have to deal with, what our reality is our reality. And we can only compare it to what we had before. And yes, just because other people have it worse doesn't mean that we don't have it pretty tough ourselves. Yeah, when it comes to this condition, this illness, and people trying to make you feel guilty, just refuse to accept it. You don't deserve it. It's not yours to feel.